So we left off here with chapter 38.1 talking about fruit development. And so we talked about the fact that the type of fruit that the seed will be enclosed in depends on what type of flower the seed came from. So a simple fruit comes from a flower that has a single or a fused carpel, so a number of fused carpels. And an aggregate fruit, on the other hand, is going to come from a single flower, but that has multiple separate carpels. And then a multiple fruit is one that develops from a group of different flowers, and that group of flowers is called an inflorescence. And then we have an accessory fruit, which is made of a variety of different types of carpels, but what makes it accessory is that other parts of the flower are incorporated into the fruit itself. So just a reminder again about fruit development is that the fruit is going to be developed from the actual ovary that is surrounding the ovule. So that is what actually forms the fruit, and the fruit takes all different types of forms, from a liquid to a solid, from a fleshy moist flesh to a dried husk. So here's some examples. This is an example of a simple fruit. We have peaches, plums, apricots, and cherries all come from one flower with one carpel, and that one carpel has one ovary, and that ovary develops into the fruit that has one seed enclosed. And then here the example, the classic one for aggregate fruit, is a raspberry. We also have strawberries that come from aggregate fruit. So there's one flower with an aggregate fruit, but there are many ovaries. Therefore, there are many seeds just in that one fruit. And then here's an example of an accessory fruit. We have apples and pears. So in the case of an apple or a pear, we get one flower, but that flower has 5 carpels in this case. And there are many ovaries and many seeds. But what makes it an accessory fruit is that there are other floral parts in addition to the ovaries that come together to make that fruit. This is a picture showing different types of fruit. So sometimes things that we don't even think of as fruits are actually fruits. So there's anything that's developed from that ovary around the seed and enclosing the seed. And they serve the purpose to attract some sort of animal to aid in the dispersal of the seed. And so the seeds have, or the plant has a motive to get the new plant off to a place where it's not going to have to compete with the parent plant. So while the seeds are in, we're going to skip that there. While the seeds are in the fruit, waiting for germination, they go into a stage of dormancy. And that dormancy again is a dried out state where the metabolic processes of the young embryo plant have come to almost a standstill. And a seed can stay dormant from a few days to a few years, depending on the species of plant. But essentially, the reason for this dormancy is that the seed needs to wait for a suitable environment in order to get itself established and grow. And depending on the environment and the plant, what causes it to come out of dormancy varies from species to species. So for example, if a plant is going to thrive in a place that's cold, then it's going to need a shock of cold in order to break it out of its dormancy. Or if it's something that is located in a place where there are frequent fires, that seed may require intense heat to break dormancy. And then once that occurs, there's a lot of open space. If there's been a fire coming through, then there's lots of open space for these new plants to get started with little competition. So it's all about adaptations to help aid in the survival and continued reproduction of the plants. What you see on this slide are the three main ways that a seed is dispersed away from its parent plant. So again, trying to cut down on that competition for resources. So there can be dispersal by water, and obviously water-based plants are going to rely on water to disperse the seeds. And there are others that float, like a coconut seed will float along in water. Wind is one that we're familiar with all the pollen we have in our area. So this example here is of a giant seed of a tropical Asian climbing gourd. But we also have little examples like a dandelion seed. And a lot of times in the spring, driving around our area, you'll see lots of seeds floating around, and sometimes we just see pollen floating around itself. We also have dispersal by animals, and the three examples that we have here is an actual squirrel carrying it along, or some animal may eat the fruit, and then its feces will contain the seeds, and it'll also contain quite a bit of nutrient material for that plant to get started. And others would be insects. Those are ants carrying a number of seeds there. So there are two types of seed dispersal, thinking back to our ecology unit. We have an R strategy or a K strategy of seed dispersal. So with an R strategy, that's again not going to be density dependent as much. So there's lots of offspring with little investment and high mortality. And a K strategy of seed dispersal means there's going to be fewer seeds, fewer offspring, but there'll be more invested energy and a lower mortality rate. Many plants, though, produce enormous numbers of seeds to compensate for a very low survival rate. So this is finally the credits for the different animations that are found in this PowerPoint. A couple of the animations you can also find on your My Mastering Pearson website. If you look at Chapter 38, you'll find those animations to take a look at.